Well, good afternoon, my stitchy friends. How is everybody today? I hope you're all doing well. Um, Things here are, what a dreary day. Not been raining today, but it is just cloudy and overcast and cold and, well, just a dreary day and a good day to do laundry, which was already done, and have a little bit of stitching time and a stitch with me so I can share that time with you. So I want to welcome you all to NeedleBugg. My name is Karen, and of course, this is all about cross stitch. So we're going to stitch with me today, but what I thought I would do first is, because I promised to do this and I am a few days late, but I promised to do the draw for the giveaway from my last Stitch with Me. There you go, my last Stitch with Me, or last update video. You probably remember this was the piece that I finished and which I still have not FFO'd. But I am going to give this chart away. So without further ado, I have random comment picker already all, well, let's see if we can get it to fit the screen a little bit better here. Well, maybe, hold on. Maybe I need, there we go. I just needed to adjust this a little bit. So I already have the comments. And if you remember, the word was the word sweet. And there were 11 people that used that comment in the comment section. So let's see who wins. Oh, well, that was a quick picker. Well, Jody, congratulations. You are the winner of Home Sweet Home. Oop, wrong way. Home Sweet Home by Little House Needleworks. So congratulations to you. Her comment was, happy dance and congratulations, Mrs. Karen, on your beautiful Home Sweet Home. Can't wait to see it finished into a pillow. I love your ideas for a rotation for your whips. Maybe you should stick to a certain amount of stitches, like 500 a piece, and not do one whole week on each. You might get bored. Jody, you know me well. I think it was Allison Royal who said, and how long will that last? But I couldn't remember. But I could be wrong. There is one rule in cross stitch, and we really need to add this, guys, to the motto of this channel. And that rule is never say never, because you never know what you're going to do. So thank you, Jody, for the lovely, lovely comments. You always leave such wonderful ones. And if you get a hold of me and give me your snail mail address, I will get this out in the mail to you as soon as I receive your address. So thank you all for entering, and I hope you all enjoyed that. Okay, so now we'll go back to my chart. Oh, there you could see my, let's see if I can get you better. There you can see it. My lovely daughter, her husband, and the kids. They're kind of, hold on. They're kind of cut off here. Let's get this, get it a little bigger. There you go. Those are my precious people. When you hear me talk about the grands, that's who it is. So let's find, there we go, my chart. And if you notice, you're seeing something a bit different here. when have you seen me stitch like this? I don't think I ever have, to be honest with you. So, number one thing that's different. Let's see if we can get it a little closer so you can see the stitches. There you go. Sorry for the shaking. I thought this new get up for my camera would, but it still so happens if the table shakes, the arm shakes. But you will notice that I'm not doing full crosses. I'm not. When have you known me to do 10 stitch? This is part of, I was talking with my VIP members, and we came up with a bit of let's do a 10 stitch experiment. So that is what I have been doing. Doing it, stitching this way, I'm able to get somewhere in the neighborhood of, give or take, 500 stitches in just a few hours of stitching. I think every day that I worked on this, I had at least 450, and a lot of times 500. And I've only been working on it, let's see, truth be told, I've only been working on it for 4 days. And already I have 1,500 stitches done. And I'm averaging 375 stitches a day. This right here, folks, is why I'm loving Markup RXP over Pattern Keeper. Now, hopefully, as they promised, the next update, it will put your chart together all as one big chart. Keep your fingers crossed, my friends. Keep your fingers crossed. I need to not touch this table so this stops shaking. That little bit of shakiness. I apologize for that. Hopefully it won't make you too ill. I have to find a way to keep the table from shaking. I'm just about at 2% complete, which, wowzers, that's wonderful. And there are 78,750 stitches in this piece. Now, you probably say, but Karen, you didn't show us the piece. No, I didn't. So let's have a look. This is the other reason I can just click right here very quickly to be able to show you this is what I'm stitching. I don't have to back out of the program and go find a picture. It's right here. It is called Jane and the Prisoner of WoolHouse. It is a heaven and earth design. It's by, I'm not sure how you say this, so I'm going to butcher it, Kenyuko Y Craft Arts. Now, on Heaven and Earth site, this is discontinued, and I apologize for that, but I teetotally love the design. So I have been looking around to see if anyone else carries it, because there are other full coverage people that have contracts with this particular designer. I did find one, and there was a gal who asked me about this, and she was also going to be looking for it. So I did refer her to that charting company, and since they already have contracts with this designer, maybe they'll ask for permission to chart this one. So we'll see. But it's a lovely, lovely, lovely design. And what drew it to me, actually, what drew me to it was the tall ships in the background and just highlighting the gal standing on the dock. So I think it is a lovely, lovely design. And since I wanted to give tent stitch a fair shot, this design is not that large. It is a mini. So it's only 225 by 350. I figured, you know what, it's not that big. It's probably a good chart to really give a fair shot to doing tent stitch. So that's the reason I chose it, and that is what I'm doing. So back to the chart, and we'll do a little bit of stitching. I was asked to show how I'm doing the tent stitch, and to be perfectly honest with you, the way I'm doing it, there really is no rhyme or reason, none at all. I am doing the 10 by 10 squares on the diagonal. I'm using Teresa Little Stitcher's method. Hi, Teresa. I'm sure you're going to watch this at some point. So I am giving her method a shot. Now you will notice that my tent stitches are not going from bottom left to top right. I find I prefer the look of where they go from bottom right to top left. And the reason for that is when I do my X's in a full cross, that is the direction of my top stitch. Bottom right to top left. Therefore, when I look at this, it now looks finished to me. Where before, when I tried tent stitching and I tried the slant the other direction, bottom left to top right, it always looked undone. It always looked like you need to do something else to that. You're not finished here. This way, I'm finding I'm quite happy with it. I am really quite comfortable, and suffice to say, I'm rather enjoying it. Before, I really never did. I just couldn't. I just didn't like the look before. So for me to actually say, oh, I think I can live with this. I think I kind of like this now, is a huge difference for me, because I never was a tent stitcher. And that being said, I really am winging my way through this. Like I said, there is no rhyme or reason to whether I am doing a half cross or a continental type stitch. No rhyme or reason whatsoever. It is, I put whatever type stitch seems to fit the best on the stitch that I'm stitching. The hardest part for me is to stop myself to count correctly, because I tend to, when you're so used to counting for full X's, to count that you're only doing a half stitch is a little bit, it takes a little bit of getting used to. So I have to count the threads and go down 1, 2, 3. And I always bring my needle up when I'm counting in the lower right corner, because that's my start. And there's 1, and there's 2. So I'm going to start right here. Okay. Now, I am just leaving a tail to anchor my thread. Just a smidgen little tail. And that, of course, will get stitched over. So like I said, I'm actually getting a little bit faster. when I don't get these stinking little knots. So how's that for a way to start? There we go. There we go. Let's do that again. Let's do that again. So we want to go down 1, 2, 3, second one in, and let's see if we can make that get a little knot again. I don't know why, but it always seems 9 times out of 10, if something's going to knot up a little bit on me, this is when it does it. The first stitch or two. I don't know why. I really don't know why. And again, two-handed stitching, I do it. I can do it. But truth be told, I really am a one-handed stitcher. That is what is that is what is most comfortable for me. Now, guys, hang on to your hats here, because I know you're sitting there shouting at me going, well, Karen, you showed us the design. Of course you're stitching with DMC because that's what you always stitch with. But what count fabric are you working on? Who wants to venture a guess? Because what am I using here? One strand of floss. One strand of floss. So anybody want to guess what count fabric I'm using? I'll give you a second to think about it. However, while you think about it, where are they? Here they are. I'm going to stick my handy dandy new little magnifier on, and I'll show you this. Look at these. Are they not the cat's meow? They're clip-on, like the mag eyes, but they're not mag eyes. They clip on your glasses, but this magnification is away from your glasses. So I don't need as strong. I got them on Amazon. And a friend of mine that I stitch with when I go to Salty Yarns told me about them. And this is what they are. And they come with several strengths. And really, I love them. I truly love them. So I'm just going to slip them onto my glasses so you can see how silly I look. Is that not attractive or what? Now, don't all laugh at once. It's really attractive, I know. However, with these, unlike the trouble I had with the mag eyes, get them on straight, I can still see my graph without having to look, without looking through the magnifier. I can still see my graph. So that's wonderful. I can still see my screen up here to make sure I'm in the right place for you guys. And I can see my stitching quite nicely. So, did you decide what count this is? Well, first of all, I'll tell you it's not 40 because 40 doesn't come gridded like this. Second of all, I'll tell you it's not 28 because 28 I would have to use 2 strands of floss. And I'm only using 1. So that only leaves one option. 32 count. over 1 with 1 strand of floss. And with my new glasses and my handy dandy little attractive little magnifier thing here, I am quite enjoying 32 count over 1. Now, did you ever think you would hear me say that again? But it really has gotten so that I can see it without any trouble. My trouble is finding the hole. But yes, I really am really am enjoying this. This is why you never say never. I truly honestly thought I would never be able to come back to these lower count, not lower, higher count fabrics again. I truly did not think that was going to happen. And once I got my eyes straightened out and I found these handy dandy little spectacles to clip onto my glasses, it's just like I'm in heaven. This is wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful. I am kind of trying to keep my threads a little more organized, because now that's the other thing, folks. Did I not say I have had it with parking? I was done with parking. And now look what I'm doing again. I'm parking. But this time, I am attempting to keep my threads, oh, I don't want to pull that out yet, to keep my threads rather organized. So what I'm doing is pulling them down and then anchoring them down here so that when I need it again, all I have to do is pull it out and use that one. Now, when I do this block, I will pull all of these out and lay them up over the top. And then I will start and work these in before I add any new color. And I will start with the lowest one, working up to the highest one. And then whatever's left, I will add the colors for. So that's my plan. That's my plan. And so far, that seems to be working. Now, when I look at the block that I'm working in, I really, if there's nothing parked in it, and there has not been anything parked in this one yet, I do try and look for the blocks that have the least stitches first and save the blocks with the most stitches for last. And well, we all kind of by now know my logic for doing that. And that is because then, as you see, I will carry the threads within that block. However, if you save the squares with the most stitches of a color for last, what will happen is that those stitches will cover up your thread carries. And to be perfectly honest, the back of this work does not look that bad. Yes, it's not perfect. But let me flip over here to show you. There. It's not perfect, but truly, it is not horrible. And that was always also the turn off for me, is the back getting so thick. But seriously, this is not that bad. This is not that bad at all. So again, the other reason I am rather enjoying this method. So, Jody, you were absolutely correct. Never say never. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it is in the next one. Okay, and I'm going to just, even with leaving these tails like that, and I leave a little bit up on the top of the fabric so that I can kind of grab a hold of it. And what is taking the longest for me is the counting placement. And yeah, because then you tend to pull it out. Yeah, hello. 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's in this. Okay, Karen. I hate when your finger catches the loop of the thread and yanks it out like that. 1, 2, 4. There we go. I hate when that happens, and it happens to me all the time. My fingers get in the way. 1, 2, 3. So that's the hardest part. And as you see, I'm not necessarily sticking to it being a continental or a half stitch. What I'm leaning towards is, especially when I get around the other stitches. Now this one's going to be a continental type. But what I lean towards is, can I come up in the empty hole and go down in the hole that has a stitch in it? That has kind of been what determines the direction of my stitch. So now here I want to do this stitch here. So I'm going to be going down here. So this is going to end up being more or less a half cross stitch. Now sometimes it really doesn't make much difference at all. And I think it's that, I call it willy-nilliness, that hopefully will keep it from going askew with any amount of luck. It will, and even so, even if it does, bottom line, folks, is it's going to get washed and pressed once it's done. So during that process, if this fabric does get distorted, that's your opportune time to block it. And you know what? I've done that just by my ironing it dry process. When I iron it dry, I tend to tug on the opposite corners so that I can get it back in shape of where it needs to be. And I really haven't had an issue. And then when you frame it, of course, you are continuing to tug it back into the correct shape. So yeah, it's, whether it's going to get a little distorted is not something that at this point I'm going to worry about. That's down on the list of my worries. But I will say, the more I've been doing this, the more comfortable I've become. Now, I did switch from my ballpoint needle back to a standard regular tapestry needle. The one I'm using happens to be one of Pat's needles. So I either use those or a bowhin needle. But I am finding that, there is a little bit of bulk back there, especially when you're filling in that last color that is covering the predominance of the block. Sometimes the thread gets a little bit difficult to punch through. So I have switched back to a regular tapestry needle just so that I can, you're piercing the thread, the embroidery floss thread, not necessarily the fabric threads. But you know what? I'm okay with that because I do try and go down in the holes that already have a stitch in them, as opposed to the ones that don't. Now, there are times I'm going to come up like this, not this stitch, but this next stitch that already have a thread in them. But so far, I haven't had trouble with any of my stitches. Oops. Go down in the wrong place, you silly girl. I haven't had trouble with the stitches pulling loose to this point, and they all seem to be laying even, with an even tension and a consistent look. So as I said, I'm not particularly overly concerned. Come on. There we go. I mean, so far it seems to be working. I'm getting more accustomed to the counting and knowing where the stitches go. Yeah, now here's a spot where it's a little thicker behind there, so there we go. Finding that hole and being able to punch through it. And I must have made a mistake here somewhere, but you know what? As I have said before, this is background. I'm not going to frog it. It's background. It's sky. It's all different shades of gray. And the only one that's going to notice that maybe there's only one stitch of a color instead of two, and even I am not going to remember 2 hours from now where it was. So it's just a matter of keeping on. So, I mean, I think you've noticed that some of these, when I go from left to right, they tend to be more of a continental type stitch. When I go right to left, they tend to be more of a half cross stitch unless I need to jump around somewhere. And then it's every man for its, or every stitch for itself. So I'm going to park it here. Now, while I'm parking and counting to where that has to park, now, if you look, let me cross these off. Okay. If you look, I'm going to park in, from the right, the first stitch of this color in the block below. So that's going to be here. Okay. And then I can get rid of that. So I've parked there. Now, it brings me to a discussion I was reading and commenting on Facebook of these gray lines. What number between 1 and 10 is the gray line? It can be either or. It's your choice. Whatever you are most comfortable with. You can make it your first stitch, or you can make it your 10th stitch. I make mine my first stitch. So if we move over here, you can see here's my gray line, and I started my first stitch on the gray line. Across the top, I started my first stitch on the gray line. So that makes this last stitch in the block stitch number 10, as well as this one, stitch number 10, where this is stitch number 1 and this is stitch number 1. All right, so when I get over here to park my thread in the block below, I have to remember that. So here's my gray line. That's stitch number 1. This is number 10. This is number 9. And do you see I put it in the wrong spot? So I'm still getting used to that myself. So this one, this is number 10 to the left of my needle. This is number 9 to the left of my needle. So that is where I want to park. As I said, the choice is yours of whatever you want to do. But let me forewarn you all. If on this project you decide that that gray line is stitch number 1, whether you're working across the rows or in each direction, that gray line is stitch number 1. If you're counting from left to right or you're counting from top to bottom, the gray line is stitch number 1 on this project. Do not, if you value your sanity, do not start other projects the other way. Do not start your next project with that gray line being stitch number 10. Because if you do, it is going to seriously mess with your head. Because then you're going to pick up a project and you're going to have to sit and figure out, which way did I start this? Did I start gray line as number 1? Or did I start gray line as number 10? So my best advice to any of you that use gridded fabric, no matter who you are, no matter how long you've been stitching, my best advice is always make the gray line the same number of stitch on every project that you start. I always have the gray line as stitch number 1. How do I know this, you asked? Why do you say that, Karen? How do you know that it messes with your head? Because I thought I was going to be smart and test out having the gray line be stitch number 10 on a project. So I did that. When I went back to my previous project, I had myself all confused. I could not remember, as I was stitching, whether that line was 1 or 10. And I had my chart or my fabric so messed up. Sometimes I stitched that it was number 1, and the next row I stitched that it was number 10. And then I had no idea what I was doing because I couldn't keep it straight. Then I'd switch back to the project that was the opposite, and I'd do the same thing. And it was just a mess. One way, no matter which way I was stitching, it was a mess. So that's how I know it messes with your head terribly. So if this is your first project, make that decision and stick with it on every project that you do. Do not change your mind. What I ended up doing on that project that I did the opposite is restarting it, because it was just, I couldn't do it. I just could not do it. So whatever you decide is fine. It works either way, whether it's number 1 or whether it's number 10. Doesn't make a difference. Just do it the same way on every project. Make the decision and stick with it forever and ever. Amen. You know, and the other thing that came up, ooh, I got a knot here. The other thing that just came up recently that I read was, I think it was in tent stitching. I'm not 100% sure whether it was, no, it was on 36 count. Do I stitch with 1 strand of floss or 2 strands of floss? And that's always another big question that a lot of people have, especially people who have not stitched on that before. And my answer to that person, among many other answers, was whether you use 1 strand or 2 strands of floss is really a personal preference. On 36 count, in all honesty, I prefer 1 strand, because there is that part of me that likes to see my X. I like to see that there is actually an X there. That's my preference. A lot of people feel like that is not enough coverage, and they want the coverage to be heavier, and really then what they don't see is the X. So what I said to this woman is, you need to make that choice first. The choice of what kind of coverage do you like? Do you like a sparser coverage where you can see the X's? Or do you like a denser coverage where you are for sure not going to see any fabric through, and it is going to be thicker? Which one do you like? And after you make that decision, the decision on 1 thread or 2 threads becomes very easy. If you like a sparser look, then you use 1. If you like a denser, heavier, bulkier look, then you use 2. But you have to make the decision of what effect do you want before you can decide how many threads to use. So it's what do you prefer? So I hope this video has answered some of the questions of how I'm choosing to do tent stitch. Like I said, there were a few people that asked, how are you gonna, what method are you gonna do? Are you gonna do all half crosses, or are you gonna do a combination of half and continental, or are you gonna do all continental? Now, if I was going to do, say, all half crosses, for example, I think you can still see this. In order to do that, I would have to come up in these holes that already have stitches in it to have this be a half cross stitch. And I don't mind doing this one here. Look, we'll go like this. So there would be my half. So now I would have to come up over here. And as I said, I'm willy-nillying this anyway, so it doesn't matter. The only way you're going to tell is the back. And I would go down here. And I would come up here. So do you see on these rows where you're working to have it all be half cross, on these rows where you're working left to right, you have to come up in your previous row to get it to be a half cross on the back. I find that more comfortable to do that as a continental. Now, when I'm going right to left, because I want to go down in the previous row, they're all half crosses. Because see, I'm going down, and where does my thread travel on the back? It travels directly down, which gives me an upright stitch on the back, which makes it a half cross. I thought I felt a knot there, but I don't think I did. No, sometimes I think I feel things that I don't really feel. Now, when you're doing this half cross, be careful of your tension, because with these, well, continental type stitch, you don't have to worry about it, but with a half cross stitch, you have to worry about a little bit about thread slippage. So you don't want to pull it extremely tight or, really give it a good yank, because then you run the risk of that thread slipping underneath your fabric thread. And I will tell you again, because it happened to me, that if you need to frog that stitch, it is very, very difficult to get it back out. What ended up happening is I ended up splitting the floss. And then when you pull it out, you get half that strand, and the other half of that strand just bunches up on the back. So be careful. You don't want to have to frog on this any more than is absolutely necessary. So my advice is take your time, count twice, or even 3 times, stitch once. If it's background and it's a stitch or 2 off or the wrong color, like seriously here, these colors are so close to each other, you really can't tell the difference in the colors unless even when no. I mean, you can see that from here to over here, there's some difference, but within this block, not so much. not so much. So seriously, I'm not going to get gung-ho nuts about a stitch being in the wrong place. It's not the hill I'm dying on this week. Okay, folks, I think I have filled you up. My intention was this was to be a half-hour video. It has now turned into a 50-minute video. So with that, I think it is time to say, I'll see you next time. Jody Walker, don't forget, send me your address so that I can get this chart in the mail to you. And yeah, I forgot to pull them, but there will be another giveaway on the next either update, of which I probably am not going to do a whole lot of updates, mainly because I really am not working on that many projects. But on the next Stitch With Me, there will be another giveaway for all of you. I think you'll enjoy that one. So with that, my friends, I hope, let me take my goofy glasses off here. There we go. With that, my friends, I hope you all have a wonderful stitching week, and I will see you the next time. So take care, and do remember, the only rules in cross stitch are the ones you make for yourself, and never say never. Bye for now, my friends. See you soon.